So, hello there, and welcome back to another Night of the Movies podcast. I'm Spy Knight, and in this podcast, I love talking all things movies and TV, and whatever I want, whenever I want. And in today's podcast, I am reviewing the newest Star Wars Disney Plus series, which is, of course, Andor Season 2. So, let's get into it, shall we? Andor Season 2. So Andor Season 2 is, of course, if you hadn't guessed already, be very surprised if you hadn't guessed already, is a follow-on from Andor Season 1, which came out 2 years ago now. It feels like yesterday that series came out, but apparently it didn't. It came out 2 years ago now, and I think I am not mistaken by saying that it very much surprised everybody who was watching it. They weren't expecting that sort of a Star Wars show because it was more character-driven, it was more story-driven, it was a different kind of Star Wars, and I think kind of all the better for it because what the first season of Andor did so well is it really got into all the nitty-gritty aspects of the rebellion and the Empire, and you really understood why this conflict was happening, why there was this conflict between the rebellion and the Empire, and you understood from a human point of view. You got to know the humans that were involved in this conflict. That's another reason it worked so well, and it made that conflict between the rebellion and the Empire feel all the more real and all the more visceral, particularly towards the end of Season 1. And I was a very big fan of Season 1 of Andor. I absolutely loved it. I thought it's some of the best Star Wars I had ever seen, hands down. So, needless to say, although I'm going to say it anyway, I was very excited about watching Season 2. And when the first episode of Season 2 released on Disney Plus, when the first three episodes of Season 2 released on Disney Plus about 4 weeks ago. It's 4 weeks ago today, actually. Wow. Season 2 of Andor just flew by, the release schedule, because they released, 3 episodes weekly. But when the first 3 episodes came out on Disney Plus 4 weeks ago now, I was very eager to watch the season, to watch how everything continued after that unforgettable finale in Season 1. And 4 weeks later, after finishing, and not long ago, finishing the finale of Season 2, I am very pleased to say that somehow this show lived up to my expectations. This season of Andor lived up to my expectations and exceeded them at the same time. This season of Andor isn't just great Star Wars. It isn't just great TV. It is a piece of art. This, in my opinion, should go down as one of the best written pieces of TV ever, because yes, it appeals to Star Wars fans. There's all these connections to the Star Wars galaxy within the show, so I can see where Star Wars fans would be fans of the show. I mean, look at me, I'm a big Star Wars fan. I've been a Star Wars fan for as long as I can remember, and when a Star Wars t-shirt for review today, just look behind me, I got a bunch of Star Wars merchandise in my bedroom. But I also think that the amazing thing and the incredibly clever thing about the show is you don't have to be a Star Wars fan in order to like it. You don't have to be a Star Wars fan in order to get it. You just have to be a fan of great TV, and that is exactly what this show is. It is masterfully written. The dialogue in this show is sharp, poignant, thought-provoking, and feels carefully thought out. It feels like all the dialogue in the show has been crafted, has been written to the right syllable, you know what I mean? It feels like every single piece of dialogue in the show has been carefully thought out, and it's so well embedded into the series. There'll just be a line of dialogue which a character says out of nowhere, and it'll completely catch me off guard, and I get so engaged in just dialogue, conversations between characters in this series, which I don't usually get with many series that I watch. I watch a lot of great TV shows. I also watch some rubbish ones as well, but I watch a lot of great TV shows. And yeah, sometimes when I'm watching a conversation between two characters in a TV show that I might be enjoying, I'm just not that engaged in it. But there's something about Andor where, yes, there's a lot of scenes where it's just two characters or a group of characters talking, but somehow, and I know how, it's through the writing, they make the dialogue and the conversation between these characters engaging and investing, and they make it emotionally engaging at that. And that is another reason this show works to such a high degree. It is emotionally engaging. Every single episode of this series had me emotionally, particularly the third episode in each arc. Like I've already said earlier on this review, each week we got 3 episodes released from Andor Season 2, and when you get to that third episode of each arc, something would happen and I would feel emotionally floored by what I was watching. I wouldn't be able to move away from my TV screen downstairs while I was watching the series until like halfway through the credit, because of how much the show caught me emotionally. And that particularly was the case with the final episode of this series. I'm not going to spoil what happens in the final episode because, you know, if you hadn't seen the show, yeah, I don't want to spoil it, particularly as, you know, it's kind of perfect how the show ends, with all the tie-ins to Rogue One, but also how it ties up all the other character arcs with some of the characters we don't necessarily see in Rogue One that are in this show. And I just sat there at the end of the season thinking, that was utterly remarkable. I couldn't quite move off my chair. I was speechless after watching this season of Andor. I'm still a little speechless now because I didn't finish it that long ago. It was only about half an hour ago that I finished this season of Andor, but I wanted to talk about it as soon as possible because that's what I get like when I've watched something that I love so much. I feel excited to talk about it. I feel like I have to unload onto somebody, or I have to unload somewhere with all my thoughts surrounding the thing that I just watched. It happened when I watched Wicked last year. That was my favourite film of last year. It happened when I watched Elvis the year before, because that was my favourite film. That was my favourite film of the year before. It was 2023. Almost got the year on then. And that happened when I watched Severance Season 2 early this year. And Severance Season 2, granted, is still my favourite TV show of this year. But, wow. Andor Season 2 is a flipping close follow-up. I mean, there is nothing quite like this show, in my opinion. The way it grabs you emotionally and gets you excited at the same time. Like, there is so much exciting storytelling in this show, and there's so much exciting craftsmanship in this show as well, so much beautifully executed craftsmanship. This Disney Plus Star Wars TV show, which feels like a weird thing to say, but this Disney Plus Star Wars TV show made me appreciate the craft that's put into Star Wars all over again. Something which none of the other Star Wars Disney Plus shows, not to criticise or not to take anything away from it, I still enjoy a lot of the other Star Wars Disney Plus shows. Some, you know, a lot more than others, and there have been others that I didn't enjoy so much. But I haven't felt this way about another Star Wars Disney Plus show, or for that matter, another Disney Star Wars movie, or another Star Wars movie probably since the original trilogy. I haven't felt this way about the craftsmanship put into something made in the Star Wars galaxy until now. I am watching, particularly this season of Andor, and I'm sat there thinking, how are they pulling this off? How are they doing this? I mean, you know, if I watched behind-the-scenes features like I did after rewatching the original trilogy recently about how they did certain things in the original trilogy, I would see, you know, literally how they made things happen. But the thing is, I mean, how did they do it? How did they make it all work? How did they make this show look so, well, going back to the word I said before, beautiful? How did they make this show look so incredible? incredibly well made. I still don't know how they did it. Like, I am watching each and every episode, and I'm having to rewatch each and every episode because, not because I don't want to, but because the first time I watch it, I'm so floored by just looking at it, looking at the way they're shooting on location and making the shooting on location look like the locations that are in the world we live in now, making them look like, doing something in the Star Wars galaxy. And then when they're in a set, I feel like I'm watching them in a building in the Star Wars galaxy. And the set design is so detailed and so meticulous. And I haven't felt that way about watching the set design or the production design in any Star Wars movie probably since watching, or should I say rewatching, Return of the Jedi. And that's something I really didn't expect to get out of this show. And it sounds like a small thing. It does, but, the reality is there is so much great craftsmanship put into, almost every single Star Wars project, if not every single Star Wars project. But you don't always appreciate it when you come away from a Star Wars project. But every single time I came away from an episode of Andor Season 2, and Season 1 for that matter, the more I think about it, I was just caught up by how amazing it looked. Not just how amazing the experience of watching each episode was, but how amazing it looked at the same time. And all the performances are Emmy-worthy. I mean, they are all Emmy-worthy, and I do hope they at least get nominated for Emmys. I hope that whoever nominates the Emmys, I don't know, because it's not the Academy, that's the Oscars, but whoever does the Emmy nominations, I hope they, get past the fact that it's a Star Wars TV show and just watch it for what it is, a TV show with superb performances, and nominate some of these performances. I mean, nominate them all, in my opinion, because I think somehow the performances are better in this season than they were in Season 1. And in Season 1, you had some pretty, fantastic performances. But here, I mean, I'm watching every episode, and I never feel like I'm watching actors. I never feel like I'm watching actors play roles in Star Wars. And even in the original trilogy, I feel like, okay, this actor is playing this role in this Star Wars movie, But I never feel that with Andor. I feel like I'm just watching these characters, and that's how good the acting is. The acting is seamless, like in any great show it is. You just feel like you're watching characters. You feel like this is actually happening in a long time ago in a galaxy far, far away. You feel like you could actually go and visit, a long time ago in a galaxy far, far away, and this would be happening. You would see, all this stuff that's happening in the event of Andor actually happening there, if you follow my thinking. And I think that's down to the performances, which somehow elevate the writing in this series. And this series, I've said it before and I'll say it again, is masterfully written. This is one of the best written TV shows, like I said already, but I'm going to say again here because I truly feel it. This is one of the best written TV shows ever, in my opinion, that I've seen. Granted, and I haven't seen all the TV shows ever made, but I've seen some pretty damn well written TV shows, and I'm watching this show, and the reason it works, the reason that I keep coming back to why it works, is because of the writing. The writing keeps you engaged in every episode, and the writing also makes you want to rewatch every episode. It makes every episode feel like it requires a rewatch, and I don't mean that in a bad way. In fact, I mean that in the best way possible. What you want from a TV show, what you want from any form of media, particularly in something like Star Wars, which is this huge franchise, you want there to be something about it, this ingredient about it, which makes you want to go back and rewatch it. And that's what this show does so well, because when I go back and rewatch episodes of Andor, which I have been doing quite a lot over the past 4 weeks, I am catching little details that I missed the first time around, because the writing is that good and that subtle and that poignant at the same time that, again, you miss it the first time around, and somehow it's even better the second time around, like the writing on any brilliant TV show is. Yeah, the writing makes each episode of this series of Andor, it makes every episode of Andor overall, it makes it feel like it requires a rewatch, and I mean that in the best way possible. And going back onto what I was saying before, the writing is the reason this show works so well, because it makes everything feel real. It grounds this series in verisimilitude, and if you don't know what that word means, look it up. It makes the conflict between the rebellion and the Empire feel real. You believe in it. You get why there is a conflict going on. You get all the sort of infighting in the conflict as well. The infighting within the rebellion, the infighting within the Empire. You see that throughout both seasons of Andor, and in particular this season. And it just makes for such engaging and mesmerising and, I mean, amazing TV. Honestly, I don't have any criticism with the season of Andor. My one criticism with the show of all is the title, but that's not really a criticism with the show, or the writing of the show, or the acting of the show, or the directing, or anything like that. I think everything in terms of the craft that's been put into the show is top notch. My one criticism is that I don't think it should have been called Andor, because I think that's turned people off. Because bear in mind, this show came out, in the first season of the show came out in 2023. That was how many years? Or did it come out in 2022 even? I think it might be in 2022. Wow. Anyway, so I got that little fact that apparently the show came out 2 years ago wrong early on this review, but yeah, this show came out quite a few years after Rogue One, and yet it's a prequel to Rogue One. It's following a character that's only been in Rogue One, and I don't think it should have been called Andor, because I think that turns some people off from the show. I'm not saying rightly so. I'm just saying I think that's what's happened. I think they should have called this show The Birth of the Rebellion, or something like that. A better title maybe, because I'm not good at coming up with titles anyway. But I think it would have drawn more people to the show, and I also think it would have captured the show more, because as good as Andor is in the show, as good as the character of Cassian Andor is in this series, and as well played as by Diego Luna, and as much as this show makes me care more about Cassian Andor when we come to Rogue One, it's made me care a lot more about Cassian Andor when it comes to Rogue One. I'm thinking about rewatching Rogue One now, just see how much my opinion has changed on the character of Cassian Andor, because although I liked that character when I initially watched Rogue One, I've got a feeling that I love that character when I rewatch him in Rogue One now. But as much as the character Cassian Andor is great in this series, it's not just about him. It's also about Mon Mothma. She is a main character in this series in all the best ways. Her speech in episode 8 was... Oh, it was in episode 9, actually. No, sorry, it was in episode 9. Her speech in episode 9 was effective and powerful in all the ways it needed to be, and timely at that. There was a timely quality to her speech in episode 9 of this season, which makes it, I think, sort of mandatory viewing for everybody at least once in their life. Yeah. You know, I thought her speech in episode 9 was perfect, and her speech in episode 9 showcased that this show overall, Andor overall, isn't just about Andor. You know, there are plenty of other characters in the series overall which show, again, that this show isn't just about Cassian Andor. So, sure, so much of the show revolves around him, yeah, but, you know, so much of Severance revolves around Adam Scott's character, and yet it's not called whatever Adam Scott's character's called in that show. I can't remember off the top of my head right now. But you get the point I'm making. There are so many other great characters in the series that I almost feel like it was a bit of a disservice calling this show Andor. Although I love that character in this series. I absolutely love Cassian Andor coming out of this series. I just don't think it should have been called Andor. But that's my one criticism coming out of this show. That I don't think they got the title right. Apart from that, I mean, I think this show... not apart from that, I think the show's perfect anyway. I can get past my little title nitpick, because this show is powerful and it is timely. There is a timeless quality to this show overall, particularly today when, well, there are certain things going on in the world. I'm not gonna go into more detail than that. But if you've seen the series, you probably know what I'm referring to. There are things going on in this world which this show addresses. And the funny thing is, this season was made 2 years ago. Apparently, it was shot 2 years ago, and yet it's still timely today, as the best of Star Wars is. When you watch the original trilogy, there's this timeless quality to it. You know, they're fighting against fascism in the original trilogy, and that's what they're doing again here. All the political intrigue of the original trilogy, which George Lucas wanted to embed into the original films. You know, there's some people nowadays, they say Star Wars has gone too political. Disney have made Star Wars too political. No, Star Wars has always been political. Just listen to what George Lucas says about the original trilogy. He always wanted Star Wars to reflect the world he always wanted Star Wars to reflect the real world, is what I'm trying to say. And that's what Andor does perfectly. It reflects the real world. And it reflects the history of the real world. There's a lot of moments in the series where it looks like you're watching something out of Nazi Germany when you see the Empire bow, and yet at the same time there are parts of the series which feel like you're watching something which is happening in present day. And it makes the show all that more effective and powerful. It brings out the best in Star Wars in its timeless quality, you know what I mean? And when you watch this show, you can't help but get to the end of certain episodes, particularly episode 8, which I think is one of the best episodes of a TV show perhaps ever. The episode centering around the Gorman massacre. And I don't think you can help but get to the end of the episode and feel like you watch something that feels which feels real and that could actually happen. And that makes for, again, all the more powerful and effective storytelling. Plus, the show is really entertaining to watch. I made this series sound like it's quite a difficult watch, and at times it is a difficult watch. I'm not going to say it isn't, and I think, you know, it's emotionally effective as any amazing piece of television should be, which this show is. It's an amazing piece of television, but also it is thoroughly entertaining. How this show introduced K2SO, my favourite character and one of my favourite droids in the Star Wars galaxy, probably my favourite droid in the Star Wars galaxy, the more I think about it, was done perfectly. You know, some people might say, I wish we got more of K2SO on this series. No, I don't think we did. I think the last episode, or the last couple of episodes, should I say, justified why we didn't get more of him. Because, well, without going into too many details, he would have just been overpowered and would have taken away from the visceral nature of so many sequences. Yet, when we see him introduced in the show, it's like, oh yeah, that's how you introduce him. And they used K2SO perfectly. I love how this series ties into Rogue One. I haven't rewatched Rogue One yet after finishing the end of Andor Season 2, but I got a feeling if I did rewatch Rogue One imminently, I would feel it's somehow more effective. I mean, whenever I rewatch Rogue One, I am kind of floored by it anyway. I love that movie, but I got a feeling that somehow now I'm going to love it even more, because that's how good this show is. That's what any great prequel thing should do. It should make you appreciate the original thing more, and I got a feeling that this series, that the Andor TV show, is gonna make me appreciate Rogue One in a completely new light. I've even got a feeling it might make me appreciate A New Hope in a completely new light. Something I wasn't expecting to say coming out of this show, because now we effectively have our Death Star trilogy. Not to go into too many spoilers, but you know there's going to be stuff about the Death Star in the series because, well, it's before the events of Rogue One and A New Hope. So, yeah, we effectively have a Death Star trilogy in Andor Seasons 1 and 2, which are kind of one entity in my opinion, the one complete story, into Rogue One, which is, again, another story in itself that ties into Andor, and then into A New Hope, which is another story in itself, but that also ties in to Rogue One and Andor seasons 1 and 2. We effectively now have our Death Star trilogy, and I think a bloody good Death Star trilogy at that. I cannot wait to one day sit down. I don't know if it'd be one day actually, because that's a hell of a lot of TV, a hell of a lot of watching my TV downstairs or watching whatever. You get the point I'm making. I don't know if I'll be able to do it one day, but I cannot wait in the near future, maybe over the course of a week or a couple of weeks or even over a month, to rewatch all of Andor seasons 1 and 2, then rewatch Rogue One, then rewatch A New Hope, and see the complete story, you know what I mean? And then maybe even after that, rewatch Empire Strikes Back and rewatch Return of the Jedi as well, because those films are just amazing. And then get the full story of the rebellion. I cannot wait to do that in the future. And another thing I love about this series is how we are getting almost hour-long episodes in every episode in this season of Andor. Each episode is almost an hour long. There's some which are about 45 minutes long, but even that, each episode feels like it accomplishes so much, and it's not rushing at the same time. Again, as much as I've enjoyed some Star Wars Disney Plus shows recently, like Skeleton Crew, I really enjoyed Skeleton Crew, and I think more people should have watched it. It had short episodes, and it was only 8 episodes long as well, whilst this season of Andor alone is 12 episodes long, and the shortest length episode is 40 minutes, and it makes a difference because you get to know these characters more, because you get layers to everything in the writing, and because everything feels more fleshed out. You're not trying to rush the story, you're not just trying to move things along. It feels like you get to live in this era of Star Wars, and I think that's what all the Star Wars Disney Plus shows should do in the future. They probably will, because Tony Gilroy isn't behind the other Star Wars Disney Plus shows. Dave Filoni is. But I seriously think that Dave Filoni and Jon Favreau, who seem to be the guys behind the Star Wars Disney Plus shows, the other Star Wars Disney Plus shows being made, I seriously think they should look at Andor for sort of advice on how to make their own shows, even if it's not as well written as Andor. I don't necessarily need that. Sometimes I just like watching Star Wars. That's fun. That has lightsabers, that has blasters and space battles and all that jazz. But I think the episodes need to be longer because I don't feel like Star Wars TV has been long enough recently. Apart from Andor. Andor's reminding me that, Star Wars TV can be long and can be lengthy, and in all the right ways, because when you get lengthy and long episodes of a Star Wars TV show, and when they're well written, you get, top quality TV that is absolutely phenomenal. There is so much that I love about this show that I haven't even mentioned. The musical score in every episode, it hits you in the gut. It's another reason the show is so emotionally effective, because everything just comes together beautifully. It doesn't feel like any part of the show is letting itself down, you know what I mean? It doesn't feel like any part of the show isn't working on the 100% level. It feels like every element in the show, whether it's the writing, the musical score, the production design, the craftsmanship overall, the performances, and the storytelling, is all working to 100% and in the best way possible. And that makes for, in my opinion, a TV show for the ages. I seriously think Andor will become one of those shows which people return to time and time and time again. Because, like I said earlier on in this review, after all my rambling, like I said earlier on in this review, you don't need to be a Star Wars fan in order to enjoy this show. You just need to be a fan of top quality TV. And that's exactly what this show is. It works on every single level, and there's not many TV shows I can say that about. I do not have any complaints when it comes to this series. I understand why, for Star Wars fans, this might not be for them, and they might prefer the sort of Mandalorian type Star Wars. But for me, I like all different kinds of Star Wars when it's well done. But the thing with the Andor seasons 1 and 2, not only is this show overall well done, it's exceptionally well done. And so, all in all, I'm going to say that Andor Season 2 and Andor Season 1 and Andor Season 1, I'm going to say that overall, the Andor TV show is a 10 out of 10. Yep. No notes with me when it comes to this series. Another thing which I want to quickly mention just before I finish off this review is I love how throughout this series you're cutting between all these different storylines. There's like 10 main storylines going on in the show, and none of it feels messy, which seems like a little thing, but honestly, sometimes you watch things where there's like 10 storylines going on, it feels messy, and it doesn't feel like the 10 storylines come together, but the 10 storylines are not, well, yeah, the 10 main storylines I'm watching the show, and then all the other sort of B subplot storylines, they all come together perfectly, and they're all just engaging with the last, and that is a tough thing to do. That's a tough thing to make work, to make all your storylines as engaging as the last. And yet again, as I've said before in this series, it's all down to the writing, and the writing makes your engagement in every single storyline in the show work seamlessly. Yeah, I love Andor. I love that it's only 2 seasons long as well. I've heard some people say they wish it was longer. I don't. I think the best TV shows should end on a high. And you know what? This show ended on a big, big high. Everything about this series worked. And like I said in my initial thoughts on this review today, Andor, at the end of the day, isn't just a great Star Wars TV show. And it isn't just a brilliant piece of TV. It's a piece of art that I think is, yeah, I think it's going to go down as in history. I genuinely do. I think this will be one of those TV shows which people are still talking about in 20 to 50 to, I don't know, however many years' time. I think people are going to be talking about this TV show for a very long time, because I still think it'll be timely in all the years in the future. I think there'll always be this timeless quality that comes with Andor, and that's not an easy thing to get with a TV show. But this show, like I said before, it works on all the levels you want it to, and is quite simply, in my opinion, one of the best TV shows ever made. And I don't say that lightly. But, I mean, wow. Just the more I think about this show, the more it makes me speechless. You know. So yeah, I absolutely loved Andor seasons 1 and 2. I can't wait to rewatch them. I can't wait to rewatch them with Rogue One and A New Hope as well. Because now we have our Death Star trilogy, and I can't wait to rewatch this show and notice all the things that I didn't notice before, because there is so much that I will notice the second time around. Yeah, I mean, you get the point I'm making. I've been rambling on way too much about Andor, but I absolutely love it. I truly do. I think it's amazing, you know. Yeah, I think it's absolutely amazing. And so, all in all, I'm going to stop myself before rambling on even further. All in all, as I said before, and as I'm going to say once more in this podcast today, Andor season 2 and season 1 at that, Andor overall is a 10 out of 10 from me. Anyway, guys, that's it for today's podcast. If you have seen Andor, please let me know your thoughts on it in the comment section below. And as always, thank you for watching or listening to this podcast. And if you haven't yet, please just click down below and like and subscribe on this video. And look forward to many more videos and many more podcasts coming very, very soon on this channel. As what he said, thank you so much for watching or listening to this podcast. And yeah, we got there in the end. I will see you guys again soon. But bye for now. Bye.